I'd like to do something about Lanai. Who do I know in Lanai that really would know what's cooking and how to handle? Up you came in my mind. I'm so glad we're doing this. This is,
It's
I hope, a gateway, a doorway to us doing stories about Lanai then and now. I know you have a book also, right? I mean, I'm going to get a
yeah.
copy.
Well, I
There's
just
another one
happen,
coming, huh? Like
I
this?
just happen to have a copy of it right
Oh,
here,
look at that. I got it too.
and you have your copy right there.
Thank you. Yeah. When I
Oh,
was reading it through, I thought, boy, she knows all the names of all these people and has a history of this area. It's like I couldn't have chosen a better person to reintroduce me to Lanai and introduce the world to Lanai and as a gateway to the world to understand Maui and all that's going on here and how we can be an example to the
yes.
world. I mean, that is really beautiful.
This is by Maui artist Phil Guanquist. He came to Lanai to visit me when I had the original Hotel Lanai. And he and Pam Andelin came, and they both painted like crazy during the days they stayed with me. This is the house next door to me. It's gone, but you can see Rose. Her name is Rose Magente. And every evening, she would stand outside. She would water her plants, and she would scatter chicken feed to the roosters and the hens. And she did this every night. And she had a beautiful singing voice, but she
Huh.
usually hummed or sang to herself. And when I thought about moving back to Lanai, I was wondering, where am I going to live? I was coming back to work at the school as a parent community coordinator. So I prepared newsletters and sent happy notes home to the elementary school students for their parents. And I picked up this painting that Phil had done for me, which I purchased as soon as while the paint was still wet. So I bought it from him, and I have cherished it ever since. But I
That's
picked up this
beautiful.
painting, and I held it in front of me, and I said, when I come home to Lanai, I want to live in a house just like this one. And I got the
You did
house
it.
next door. I was given the house next door, and I still live in this house.
That's
So I moved
amazing.
into this house in 1986, 85,
Wow.
86, and I'm still here.
Wow.
So I thought you'd like to see this because it
Oh,
has so
yeah.
many memories.
1986, and I got here in 88. It was really a beautiful time then. And so I, so your situation in Hana was before that.
Oh yes. My husband Tony and I moved to Hana in 1968.
Right.
We had had a very difficult transition because he was married when I met him.
Uh,
The only way in those days that he could get a divorce, his wife was from New Zealand. So the only way we could be married is if we both went to New Zealand, went before the judge in a court, and were declared as adulteresses. We had to stay there in the country for a year, and of course we were working there too.
well,
But after we got his divorce was finalized, I was married in New Zealand.
well,
Yeah, just beside the ocean in a hotel. We worked at a hotel called the Mondis here. It was on Takapuna Beach, which is right across from the Auckland Harbor. And it
wow.
was like being in Hawaii because there were these beautiful, huge pohutukawa trees, which we call ohiolehua here in Hawaii. But it felt
Wow.
like I was at home.
Wow. I've heard that New Zealand was a beautiful place. And
It's truly a very, very beautiful country. Very, very beautiful people too.
wow. So then you came back here and went back to Hana?
No, no, we still hadn't gone to Hana yet. So we
Oh,
stayed on Oahu and he worked as a consultant for different companies and friends. And then out of the the Kimbals were very close to us. Kenji Kimball was very close to both of us. And Tony had worked at them originally at the Halekulani Hotel.
Yeah.
As soon as he arrived on a ship from New Zealand. And everyone told him, go to the Halekulani, go to the Halekulani. So he got off the ship, went over to the Halekulani, was interviewed, and was hired on the same day to be their food and beverage manager.
Wow.
So it's life goes full circle. You keep encountering the same people over and over and over, I think, in your lives. And the Kimballs were both, they were very, very kind and supportive.
That's beautiful.
Well, anyway, Kenji was the one that recommended that and Tony to the Tap Pryor, who was at the Sea Life Park in those days. Tap and his friends had acquired Hotel Hana Maui, and they were looking for a general manager. And it was only like 6 days before Christmas. So they hired Tony right away. He went over to the Hana, and then I came on Christmas Eve.
Wow.
So it was really exciting. We moved so quickly and everything fell into place. And, Christmas season, the Christmas holidays are the busiest time in any hotel all over Hawaii. Wow. So I got off the plane, went to a cottage at the hotel. They had these bungalows out where the new section of the hotel is built now. Ripped off my clothes, hopped in the shower, got out, dried myself off, put on my makeup, and then put on this beautiful evening gown to go to this cocktail party, which was at the Lanai Plantation House, which was the former home of John and Babes Hatchett. That was the original ranch house in that
community. You just
said
Lanai Plantation. You
didn't the Hana Plantation House. But it was a beautiful evening, and it was just magical. Really, really exciting. And John Hatchett, he was really a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful, gentle man. And he had heard of my reputation as a horsewoman. So he came up to me and he said, Alberta, would you like to ride tomorrow morning? And I looked at him and said, I would love to ride. He said, I'll have a horse waiting for you in the horse chapel across the street. What time would you like to go? And I said, would 6:00 a.m. be too early? The next morning, I was dressed in my jeans and a long sleeve shirt and a jacket. And there was my horse, a beautiful bay gelding. And from then on, John gave me permission to ride anywhere on the ranch that I wanted to at any time. And he also gave me access to a beautiful pasture, which was right across from the hotel grounds. So I sort of had a very, very privileged, very loving lifestyle in Hana.
What kind of year was this?
1968, 1969. Wow. We just got thrown just into the very thick of things. We had a beautiful Christmas season there. And 6 days later, on January 6th, Tap Pryor's parents, Sam and Mary Tay Pryor, arrived. They pulled in under into the hotel's porte cochere, and I went up to greet them, and it was just like instant karma, instant love. I was just immediately accepted by them as part of their family, and they were a sad part of my life because I miss them so much now.
So when did you come back to Lanai?
I actually came back twice. When Tony was still alive.
Yeah.
And, the lease on Hotel Lanai became available. And we talked about it. He was very busy at the hotel and thought that the hotel in Lanai would be something that I could do very successfully by myself with him in the background.
Sure.
And we were able to acquire the lease from Castle Cook. And my sister, Mina Morita, Mina lives on Kauai now, and she was in politics for a very long time.
Yeah.
But before all that happened, she was working at Hanley in the hotel industry. So she moved over to Lanai to take care of the hotel. I flew back and forth, not pretty much weekly. I came over to Lanai for at least 1 or 2 days a week. And then I went back to Hana, to the hotel and my family, my husband, to my children.
Right.
And we did that. And then Tony died. He died in 1981 of cancer. So when he died, I did not want to stay in Hana. My boys and I packed up my kids, my two boys, and I felt that if we stayed in Hana, we would always, they would always be referred to as the poor orphan boys, the DeJetley's orphan kids or whatever. I wanted to step out of Tony's shadow because he was very, very well known. I wanted to step apart and form our own lives without this shadow of, sadness hanging over us.
Right.
So we came to Lanai. I bought us dirt bikes. We had a truck to transport them. Tony was 5, David was 10. And I always was so intrigued with dirt biking and kids on dirt bikes. So I bought the whole gear. We had all the safety gear. We had the helmets. We had the gloves. We had the fancy boots, and we just rode all over this island like crazy people. It was so much fun. I still
Wow.
have the hotel to work at and to take care of. But as soon as I walked out the door and put on my riding gear, we were gone. It was a fun time, but eventually you have to come back to real life.
Where are the
So we
kids
just did
now?
that.
Are they no
Oh,
longer kids, I bet,
well, David was actually born at the Hana Medical Center in Hana, and he was delivered by Dr. Milton Howell, who was the long-term doctor there. He was hired originally by the Fagans, and he was the center of the medical community there. But his head nurse was Mrs. Wilhelm, and she was a retired military nurse. So it's not fancy like how you go to the hospital now and they hook you up and they do all these, monitor you from head to toe while you're giving birth. My stepdaughter, Heather, was there, and we had a nanny from New Zealand who was also there. She was going to teach me how to take care of a baby because I'd never taken care of a baby before. But they were in the room with us, and then Mrs. Wilhelm said, "Push!" You pushed. You didn't question. You just did exactly as she said, and out popped the baby.
wow.
It was, I was very active during my pregnancy, and I was able to continue horseback riding until my 6th month. But I
Wow.
swam every day in the hotel swimming pool. So I was like a, a young baby, a not young adult whale in the swimming pools, swimming around with my big belly.
So you
But
had Tony first and then David?
no, David was born first.
I see.
And then 5 years later, Tony was born. But Tony's birth story is different because I was about 7 months pregnant when Tony was going on a business trip to the mainland. I
Big
couldn't I couldn't travel, but I could travel back home to Lanai. So I came to take with David to Lanai to visit my parents. And while I was here, on the first day I was here, it appeared I was going to miscarry the baby. So I went to the hospital, and the doctor there who will remain unnamed, he told me to go home. He looked at me and just said, "You're having a miscarriage. The fetus will eventually pass. But the only thing that I can suggest is that you go home and wait." And I looked at him and I thought, is he crazy or am I crazy? I did go home and I picked up the phone and the I called the um, I called Royal Hawaiian Air Service, which is owned by the company that we worked for. And I also called George Herman, who was my husband's supervisor. He was in town. We had all come to Lanai on the same plane, and they dropped me off and left me. So I called George, and he immediately sent me a plane, a Royal Hawaiian Air Service plane, came to Lanai and picked me up within the hour. And within 2 hours, I was at Kapiolani Hospital. My doctor there managed to stabilize me, and I had the baby. You
Wow.
know, I went full term and then had the baby, but I had the baby at Queen's Hospital. But
Wow.
it
Wow.
was like, no, I think it was Kapiolani. But Tony's birth was so different because we had all the bells and whistles there. But just before he was born, the electricity in the hospital went out. It was
Wow.
the my doctor was right there, and the lights went off, and he said, "Everybody freeze. I've got this." And then 2 seconds later, the light came on, and Tony was born. So to this day, we said Tony arrived like a bolt of lightning out of the blue. It was so powerful that he turned off the lights in the entire building.
What a guy.
He sold that bolt of lightning.
Are they still here in Hawaii?
Oh yeah, Tony is in Hanamaui. He lives in on a beautiful property right above Hamoa Beach. He's been there for years and years. And my son David lives in Maryland. He is retired now from the Marine Corps. But after his retirement, he started working for the Department of Defense. And he's still there, but he and his family consider Lanai home. And they come every Christmas for 6 weeks, and they come every summer for 6 weeks. And I use that time, company's company and family's family. And it's nice to have them. I love having them. But it's during that time that I have a chance to travel off the island because then they can be at my house and they can take care of my dogs. So it's
How
a good
fun.
trade-off.
Oh, that's a great
Yeah.
thing.
We all enjoy each other's company, so it's really fun to be around them.
When did you were in Lanai. When I remember you had the paper. How did that happen?
Oh,
That
well,
was years ago also. Go ahead.
yeah, well, what happened is, originally when I decided to give up the hotel and move back to Maui, I went back, before I left, I took a real estate course with Stapler. He was a realtor on Oahu, very, very good instructor. So I got my license, and then I decided that I would work in real estate in Kahului. And I worked for Carol Ball. She was really tough, but she was also really, really good.
May she rest
But
in peace.
yes,
That's good.
I was so sorry because Carol called me one day before, several months before she died, and told me that she was legally blind, but she really wanted to come to Lanai and go to the lodge at Koale. Well, the lodge at Koale is different, of course, now. But she wanted to come with her family, and we were trying to arrange that, but of course it wasn't possible, so it never happened.
Right.
But I learned so much from her and from the Carol. Carol had so many wonderful agents like Joanna Key and Sue Mary. they were very, very helpful to me.
Right.
But the pressure of being in Kalu and living that kind of lifestyle wasn't agreeing with me. So I decided that I would go home to Hana, to my own home at Makalai, which is about 4 miles outside of Hana town. And I would try my hand at writing. So I told myself, okay, I'm going to move back to Hana, but from 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. every day, I am going to glue my butt in front of my typewriter. We didn't have computers in those days, so it was this electric typewriter. I am going to glue my butt to this typewriter, this seat, this typewriting chair, until I produce something, anything. So that's what I did. And I wrote out of the blue, the story came to me. It was, I called it My True Hawaiian Lover. And it was about a orphan girl on the mainland, Midwest. You know how the lot of football athletes in Hawaii went to play football at on scholarships at mainland schools.
Yes.
Okay, so he's from a really large, loving Hawaiian family. She's an orphan. They meet, of course, they fall in love. She comes back to Hawaii with him, and they have a huge style, old fashioned Hawaiian wedding with all the girls, all the bridesmaids, and all of the different colors of the islands with the lace and just a huge, Hollywood style production, but all done by their family. And he gets a job. They're both really happy, and they still don't have children, but they have a plantation house. He works for the sugar plantation. And then one day he comes home and he says, I have a really bad headache. And that headache is actually the start of his cancer. And of course, he dies. And his parents don't want her to return to the mainland. They said, you're our family. You have to stay. Don't go. But she agrees, and her father-in-law goes out and he buys her a dog. And the dog becomes her lifeline, to moving on. It just makes me cry because it's so sad. But
But here we are now. So
yeah,
then,
but so then an old neighbor, a classmate from her high school days, is visiting Hawaii. And he finds her and he gets her number and he calls her and he goes, can I come to see you? And of course, they fall in love. They get married. He becomes part of their Hawaii Ohana. And then they move back to the mainland where he also has a large family. And she lives happily ever after. What more could you want? So I typed it up. Had to type it up several times because I kept making typos and the whiteout wasn't clearing it. So I typed it out and I stuck it in an envelope. I addressed it to True Confessions magazine,
oh,
took it to the post office, mailed it, put a stamp on it, licked the stamp, put it on, and then sent it off. And about 4 months later, a check arrived in the mail.
a check.
It was like they never told me my story was accepted. They never told me that they were going to use it. But on the cover of that issue, it goes Mount. The subtitle on the cover is My True Hawaiian Lover. So I've been writing ever since. From
Wow.
there, I became sort of a Hana activist because things were changing very rapidly there. And I, out of the blue, decided, okay, I'm going to become a newspaper writer. I'm going to publish my own newspaper. And I did. And then from there, I went to work for Joan Arno. I don't know if you remember her, but she was the owner of the Mauian magazine. She came over to Hana to look at real estate. And we were talking story, just driving around. It's really far from one house to the next.
Sure.
And we started talking about real estate. And then she asked me if I would like to try my hand at writing an article for her. You know, my dog is in the background barking, so I have to go find out what's the matter. I'll be right back. Okay, so this is the culprit.
Oh,
So he's inside now, so he'll be quiet. Okay, so anyway, I told Joan that I'd love to come out to Lahaina to work for her. I had started, writing articles for her, and she was amazing. She just knew how to do things. She became like my mentor, my idol. I just loved her. And her son Doug was a genius. He laid out the entire magazine and prepared it to be published. But whenever she wasn't, Joan just sort of like I was sort of her. She hired me as her publisher's assistant, but I was like sort of her gopher. So whatever she needed done, I went out and I did. If she needed her laundry picked up, if she wanted me to go to a restaurant to pick up some food, if she wanted me to accompany her to lunch, we did all that stuff. And I just really, really loved working for her and with Doug teaching me all of these wonderful things. Castle and Cook, as an executive at Castle and Cook, saw some of the things I was writing, and they needed someone on the Lanai who could bring it all together to try to get the information out about what Mr. Murdoch was doing on the island, to entice people who lived on the Lanai and grew up on the Lanai to come back home here to work again. And they hired me to do that. It was a dream job.
how
I
long
just
ago is we
loved
talking about? That's in the
that's
early 80s, maybe?
yeah. So I came back in 1985, 86, just about that time frame.
I see.
First of all, I lived in Hana, commuted to Lanai by Raw Hawaiian Air Service. It took me less than 90 minutes to do that trip. I mean, I got on a plane. I left my home at Makalai, went to Hana Airport, got on a plane, flew to Lanai. It was 90 minutes from my house to my office.
Wow.
Yeah, on the night, and it was amazing. So I did that weekly. I gather up all the things, the material. I did all the research on the night and gathered up photos and did that kind of thing, and then took it all home and put it all together in my home office in Hana.
Wow.
It
So
was.
then
I just loved having you visit me on the night. That was so much fun to have you here and to actually show you what's happening on our island, because a lot of outside people have very negative connotations when they say, "Oh, you mean Larry Ellison owns the entire island?" And I go, "He owns the majority of the island, but people here have their own homes. We have homes that have been generational, passed down from the people who were able to buy it after the major strike in Hawaii when all the plantations striked. On the Lanai plantation, one of the benefits that the people were asking for was the right to buy the home that they were renting from the plantation. And the plantation said yes. They allowed people to buy their homes.